Hi, this is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for Different Thinking for Different Times. I often think about limitless thinking versus limited thinking, and that anything that's small minded is very limited. And we can see it, so many examples of it right now, especially in politics, but we see it everywhere. And we tend to believe that little voice in our head. In fact, you can often hear people say, well, that's just who I am, or I can't change, or that's just me. And none of that is true. It's all limited thinking. But first, we have to develop a level of thinking above our thinking. And that's very possible. And really, we're the only person who we can control, right? We can't control anyone else's behaviors. In fact, there's 7 billion people or more on the earth, and we all have an individual journey. We live in a miracle. That's what people forget. And they get so bogged down with competition and thinking there isn't enough, which I call living in scarcity, that we all do crazy things. Now, it's important certainly to provide for your families and take care of yourselves, but we should also be taking care of others. Perhaps for those that are willing to look at tithing, which is sharing a tenth of what you bring in, and it could be what your net is or what your gross income is, to the source of spiritual support, because what it does is it helps you honor the invisible that created this miracle we live in, right? We live suspended on a little ball. Certainly in relation to the size of the universe, we're just a little ball with everything provided for life happening right here in the middle of a universe where there's not even any oxygen 5 miles or 8 miles up. I don't know exactly how far it is. I could look it up. I'm not a scientist, but even scientists don't know for sure. When you think of small-minded thinking, you hear so many people choosing one scientist or another for certain things like climate change. I mean, there's two views. I think we have to take care of where we live. But I think climate change has been going on for millions of years, and there's scientists that talk about both sides. There's also scientists on both sides of this coronavirus. There's those that say there's lockdown, and that was important. And then there's those that have done research and said, you know what, lockdowns really didn't work. It didn't help. Certainly didn't help for people that lost their businesses, their livelihoods, and got laid off. But we didn't consider that, right? Government didn't consider that. They chose one set of experts. And history may, in fact, prove they were wrong, but it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Small-minded thinking is to rail against something that you cannot change. As Eckhart Tolle often says, when you fight life, life fights you. Now, you can speak up about it. You can go what I call a complaint and a request. You go with a complaint to your government and say, let's be heard. Now, there's another way to do it, which would be peacefully protesting. I don't see a majority of people protesting against lockdowns. I just see different posts on LinkedIn or Facebook, I should say, and I see the reactions to certain views. And it's fascinating how small-minded it is to think that everyone should think our way. I don't believe everyone should think my way. What it is an invitation to negotiation. It's called compromise, and we seem to have lost that. And when you think about living in a universe, when I died on November 18th, 2002, I went from this little limited earth and limited, what I call the acorn brain. I was one with the limitless. In fact, it was a knowing. I was one with everything and nothing. I had no body, but nothing from here was there. Nothing from here. No small-minded thinking existed with the life force. And it didn't matter what you call it, which to me is interesting. I've often suspected that, but it didn't matter whether you called it God or the goddess. It had no name. As I've said here before, like Lao Tzu replied when he was asked, what is this? What is the name? What do you call this thing you're talking about? He was talking about the life force. And he said, you cannot name that which has no name. So we live in something amazing, and I'm urging everyone to rise above small-minded thinking. Stop making one side wrong or the other. Stop expecting everyone to have your political view, your scientific view, your views about anything, your views about family or relations or work or your boss. Challenge your own small-minded thinking. You'll find it leads to an amazing life. It leads to a level of joy and satisfaction, because what you'll discover is, as you change on the inside, the outside changes. So much of humans' existence, especially in Western societies, is they measure themselves against what material possessions they have, what titles they have, the things they own, the things they've achieved, the things they've done. None of it defines us. Nothing from the outside can define us. And when you leave here, by the way, and it's a place that I went to, nothing from here was there. There was no mention of my titles or all that I had achieved. What was mentioned in my life review was the good I had done, the lives I had touched. That makes sense to me. The people I had helped, the family members I had helped and loved. There was no mention of any sin. Now, that'll upset a lot of people who believe literally in the concept of hell, or that people should pay for their sins on earth here, right? They pay for what they do in a negative way with a negative consequence, right? It's cause and effect. Even if they never get charged with a crime, they have to hide forever or live with the guilt. One way or the other, people pay here. But the life force that created this miracle we live in, darkness cannot exist in the face of that life force, that light, that overwhelming light. And we're here to learn and grow. We're here to overcome our small-minded thinking, our beliefs about others. We're here to overcome making others wrong, wanting everyone to see it our way. And again, I don't care what your position is, because it doesn't matter to me. I'm interested in discussing it with people and negotiating, but I don't want someone to try to change my mind, and they might, but I want to listen, and I want them to listen to me. And small-minded thinking is so visible to all of us right now, which is fascinating to me, because it's really the gift from it is from the divine itself, from the life force, from God, the goddess, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Abraham, the Mohammed. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it's the invitation. The life force is actually helping us learn through this chaos and conflict to overcome small-minded thinking and let it go. Let people live their journeys. The outer world will never satisfy us. Until you become satisfied in the inside, which is limitless thinking, you'll realize that you're only here to do good and help others. Now, do you have gifts to give the universe? Of course. If you come here with a skill to write or to speak or to teach, or perhaps you're skilled at working in your manufacturing plant and the company loves you, whatever you're good and healthy and productive at is good for the world. You're returning your gifts. So I'm imploring everyone to rise above their acorn brain, that small-minded thinking, and move into the limitless thinking, which is nothing like it is small-minded. Where God exists, or the infinite, or the life force, or the goddess, it's infinite mercy, infinite grace. And as I said, nothing from here was there. And there was no small-minded thinking. There was no mention of races or sexes or sexual preferences or political parties or all the things I had owned or books I had written or things I had thought that made me something. And the only thing that made me someone was when I did good and remembering how I felt. Oh, here's the ice cream man. Perhaps you can hear it. He's not a small-minded thinker either. He's a generous, happy guy. And that's what I'd like us all to do this week, or until the next time that I do the podcast. Overcome your small-minded thinking. Let it go. Let others have their journey. And stop telling the story or railing against others, because it's wasted energy. Others' lives are not our business. Just your own life. That's what you have control over. Spend the energy changing yourself and see what happens. Any questions, you can email me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini.com. If you'd like me to interview you for this podcast, I'd love to hear your opinions, your challenges, maybe your experience of death, croaking, as I call it, being on the other side. I'm glad to have others join me in this journey of convincing everyone in my own way by only using my life as a example to overcome small-minded thinking. And don't take my word for it. Experiment with it yourself in between these episodes. Overcome your small brain, your reactive brain, your limited brain and limited thinking, and move into the limitless. Start to ask yourself, what would the God, the goddess, the divine, what would the life force do here? I'll give you a clue. It's not small-minded. Thanks till next time.